This weekend will also be when the Heisman race really starts. Clemson quarterback Trevor Lawrence is currently the betting favorite at plus 250, according to our friends at FOX Bet. Right behind him is Alabama's Tagovaliloa at plus 275, followed by former Bama quarterback Jalen Hurts, who will attempt to be the third straight Oklahoma player to take home the award, plus 1,100. We are now joined by Fox football college analyst Joel Klatt.
Hey, good to be back.
It's a new year.
Happy New Year.
I know, right? It is like New Year. I love it.
We're just getting started, but we might as well jump to the end. Joel,
Okay.
Who wins the Heisman this year?
I mean, listen, you always know one thing. You never want to be the preseason favorite because then you take all the arrows, you know. Yep. However, having said that, and Shannon, you know this better than anybody, as an athlete, really, but in particular a quarterback, you are defined by what you do against the best competition and in the biggest moments. That's why Trevor Lawrence is my favorite going into this season. I've got to put him as the favorite because of what he did in the biggest moments a year ago. That national championship game was sensational. In large part, the reason last year we talked about Tua so glowingly at the beginning of the season for the Heisman Trophy was because of what he did against Georgia in the national championship the year before. So I think Trevor is getting some of that, but also it's more than that. It's also what he does against the best defenses that he faces. When you take a look at the top 30 defenses in the country, Trevor Lawrence played a couple of those teams. He had a higher completion percentage in those games versus the rest of his games. He threw for 6 touchdowns, no interceptions against the best defenses that he faced versus 24 touchdowns, 4 interceptions against everybody else. And he had a 173 rating against a 154 rating. So he was better against the best defenses that he played. I want my quarterback to show up in the biggest moments, and that's why Trevor Lawrence is there. If I had to put someone just behind him, it's actually not Tua. It's Sam Ehlinger.
Wow.
That's the best value on the board by far. And let me tell you why. Since 2000, we've only seen a few Power 5 quarterbacks throw for 25 touchdowns and run for 15 touchdowns in a season. You know what those names are? Tim Tebow, Cam Newton, Johnny Manziel, Marcus Mariota, and Lamar Jackson, who did it twice.
Wow.
What is the one thing that all of those guys have in common? They won a Heisman Trophy. Sam Ehlinger did that last season. He plays for the University of Texas. If they can beat LSU in week 2 and win the Big 12, they're likely a playoff team. That's why I think Sam Ehlinger is the one that actually should be just behind Trevor Lawrence in the Heisman.
And Baker Mayfield has no use for him. Go ahead.
We learned that last
Come on,
year.
Baker.
You know, the thing is, I think I'm going to go Tua, but Trevor Lawrence has an easier schedule.
Yeah, he does.
The ACC is terrible. Let's be all the way.
I'm with you on that.
Let's be all the way 1,000, Skip. When you talk about your stiffest competition, is Syracuse? Really? Because everybody else, because Notre Dame, they're going to miss Notre Dame this year. Notre Dame, I don't know how Notre Dame pulled this off. They're in the ACC and basketball and all the other sports, but football, they're independent.
They're just kind of in the
Yeah, we're going to keep all the money. We're going to keep just in case. And you're right. And I think it might help Lawrence that he did have that big game.
Yeah.
What hurt Tua, what also might hurt Trevor Lawrence, Skip, is that they get such big leads. Tua was out the game at the half.
Yeah.
They're going to be blowing teams out.
Yeah.
So where he could legitimately throw 5 or 6 touchdowns, he's going to be at 3. And he's going to be done with 250 instead of 310 and 4 touchdowns. He's going to have 250 and maybe 2 to 3 touchdowns. And I believe that's what hurt Tua. They were blowing teams out. They're up, you know, by 42-7 at the half, and then he's done. And then I think the injuries. He had the knee injury and the ankle injury, and that really hurt him. He was not the same player at the end as he was the beginning. But old St. Nick gave a little pep talk. He said, son, that's behind us. We lost that game. Clemson was the better team. They don't, you know, they did lose a lot of those D linemen. They playing currently in the NFL. Lost a couple of those corners too, but the offense is still going to be explosive. I'm going to take my guy TT. I want to take on
old
TT.
Oh,
Take on TT.
new thing?
Yep.
Lord have mercy.
I haven't heard that
How often are we going to hear that this year, right?
TT.
Here we go.
TT for the tub.
You aren't going to Oklahoma again, are you?
Joel Klatt. Yeah. I hate to disappoint you, but the best value by far on this board right now is the 3rd overall choice.
Wow.
Jalen Hurts.
Okay.
You can have your Sam Ehlinger. I'm going to take the arch rival up in Norman.
Sure.
And I'll tell you why. If you give Lincoln Riley Jalen Hurts, you better look out. because what has Lincoln Riley just done in order? He took an undersized overachiever whom Cliff Kingsbury had demoted at Texas Tech, Baker Mayfield, and he turned out the statistically greatest season in the history of college football and won the Heisman. Then he took a tiny little baseball player who had not been great at Texas A&M.
Undersized.
He was even more. Tiny little baseball player. Tiny little legs. Little legs. And what did he do? He topped Baker's season with stats. Why was he able to do that? Because they are involved in Big 12 shootout after shootout after shootout. And I fear that the Oklahoma defense this year will be not much better than the Oklahoma defense last year.
Interesting.
So Tua will be on the bench in the third and fourth quarter. And maybe your guy, Trevor, will be on the bench too often in the fairly weak ACC because you can't just roll it. You can't beat everybody 80-0, right? And this is going to be 55-54 on a weekly basis. And I don't think Sam Ehlinger can put up the volume of numbers that Lincoln Riley will produce, because I loved what Lane Kiffin said. He said, Kyler Murray looked like a slot receiver. He's built like a slot receiver. But Jalen Hurts is built like a running back.
Yeah.
And I know you guys both gave up on him as a thrower of the football at Alabama in the biggest moments, such as the national championship
Yeah, because they
game.
play defense in that conference.
Okay, I got it. I thought Jalen Hurts was an underrated thrower. I thought he was a decent thrower, and now you're giving him with the quarterback, you're giving him to the quarterback guru. Lincoln Riley is special, man.
Oh.
There's something going on there.
Yeah.
Really
We don't
special.
deny that.
And again, Kyler had 1,001 rush yards last year. I believe Jalen can have 1,000 yards rushing.
Here's my only problem. I love Jalen Hurts. I think he's going to have a sensational year. There's no doubt about it. But you actually said it in your description there. Kyler had to top what Baker did, right? I mean, the bar for an Oklahoma quarterback to win the Heisman is not just what's going on in this season around you. It's also what just happened at that school. So he's playing against kind of the ghosts of Oklahoma quarterback pass. That's a really tough bar to come up against, right? Because Kyler's season, he threw it for 300, ran it for 60 a game. That's never been done in the history of the sport. That's in large part why he won the Heisman Trophy last year. And also what you mentioned. I believe if Tua doesn't get hurt against Georgia, he probably wins the award, even with how great a season that Kyler had, in large part because Baker won it the previous season. I think voters are going to have a hard time at the end of the year. If Jalen has a great year, they're going to look at that and be like, well, I'm not really voting for Lincoln Riley. So who am I voting for? Am I voting for the system or am I voting for the player? That's why I think
the voters have no expectations for Jalen Hurts to throw the football, and all of a sudden he's throwing for 300, 400.
Then
maybe he has a 500-yard pass.
You had 400?
I mean, at Oklahoma.
I forgot.
Oh, you forgot. You forgot.
There's also one other aspect I just wanted to touch on briefly, because I think that it's going to be apparent come early this season. This Oklahoma offense, I think, is actually going to look a little bit different because of what you said. Jalen Hurts is more of a runner from a designed run perspective than Kyler was. Kyler was like a Ferrari.
Yeah.
He can get out and beat you in space, but they didn't want to necessarily design things for him to run because you cannot get that Ferrari nicked up. One dent on a Ferrari, man, that's value goes way down. Versus Jalen Hurts, and I watched him in spring. He's built more like a Ford F-150, right? Like he'll get in there. You can design runs. What that does is that it slows the game down. It limits the number of possessions. So the volume of numbers might not be where Oklahoma has been in the last couple of years, because they might not want to win 55-54 like they have in the previous season.
Do I need to remind Shannon Sharp of what happened in the SEC championship game in the fourth quarter? Do I need to?
We got hurt. He got hurt.
He got hurt, or he lost his confidence. I don't know what happened, but Jalen Hurts came in, and I saw him, if we could see this real quick, I saw him convert 4 straight third downs throwing the football. Bing, 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 bing. Here we go. Just, it looked like a kid. He's got a pretty good arm.
Do I need to remind you what happened in the national championship game?
This is the last we saw of Jalen Hurts. Does this look like a guy? Wait until Lincoln Riley gets a hold of that.
He's in the best position he can be with Lincoln Riley. There's no denying
This is against Georgia's defense. Look at these throws. Look at this throw.
Remember, Jalen's not just playing against Tua and Trevor and Sam Ehlinger and Jonathan Taylor from Wisconsin. He's also playing against Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray.
Okay, I think he just might show you he can overcome those stats. I just believe it. I think he's got a good shot at winning the Heisman.
So many storylines.
Yeah.
We haven't even had our first
Wouldn't that
game
just
yet.
kill Shannon
Joel,
Sharp's soul?
It ain't gonna happen.
Well,
good to have you back.
It's good to be back. By the way, on those odds, there's a quarterback ahead of another quarterback.
Which one?
Justin Fields is ahead of Jake Fromm on those odds, and yet Justin Fields didn't even beat Jake Fromm out. That's why he had to transfer. It seems odd, doesn't it?
Interesting. Well, we'll see him.
Doesn't that seem a little...
We'll have the latest. Joel, good stuff. Thank you for being here. We got to switch gears to Carson Wentz. Change his playing style to avoid injury. Shannon, how are you going to talk about this one? We'll tell you next.